Is there a place for?
Okay, I work for an art organisation, and I'm an artist as well, which is now Dance Space, and I'm an artist as well, and I have a really good idea of marketing, administration, and sales, and how to promote myself. I think in this day and age, if you're an artist and you don't have a fucking clue about marketing, you're just gonna ebb and flow away into nothing.
Yeah.
You've got to be clued up because
Forget it. We're
London is just run on
now.
an economy. It's an economy-driven whole.
Yeah.
And you've got to be clued up. You can't just go, oh, I'm an artist, I can't deal with these things. You know, it's just pointless.
It depends what class you are and how you're connected and which college you went to and so on as well. So, yeah, I agree with you. If you're from a certain background, you absolutely have to have those skills in order to get yourself noticed and push yourself forward. Other people are in a more privileged position to start with and are already kind of connected to important people, and that path for them is a lot easier. And often they're the people who are less keen on doing the dirty work, really.
So you think it's all those middle class artists?
Well, of course it is, because
Yeah.
art is the culture of the middle class, and it's been cultivated.
Yeah.
It's been cultivated so that a certain class could cultivate their sensibilities, where there was another class who worked in trade.
Yeah.
How are artists not middle class? I don't understand that at all.
Go back to Siraji. You want to come out with still head? You want to come out with Mime and sing in Bangladesh? You want to see culture now, which is not middle class?
In our culturally specific situation, not middle class.
That's up tossers talk, man. Why are we talking on a post system, man? It's a wider world in the fucking post system. Nah. I didn't call you racist or a tosser.
No, you misunderstood. You misunderstood. We're all just sort of generally generically racist and tossers. It's not you specifically.
But there's I think, an important point here, because I think, the artists and practitioners who actually have quieter voices and have humility and all that, should they be, fuck off, go to the gutter, because you ain't going to have the marketing and now to get forward. So I think we got to recognize actually that, again, some folks who within cultural practice can actually advocate for that and speak up in spaces like this, or be signified by folks as being important. But there's a lot more other stuff going on which actually is struggling. And I think that I'm on the side of them struggling, because this becomes the mainstream, which is being able to sit down here. So as most of you folks probably do, we don't spend much time looking at the mainstream. We out there beyond the radar, just trying to see what's really been happening and what's perhaps coming in the future, and just getting inspired by that. But I think we should look at this divide about them lot who are in cultural practice, who actually have the kind of bourgeoisie intelligentsia skills of being able to have the lip and the bit of a brain there and a bit of a kind of clothes there and come to a gallery. But there's loads of other folks who are just terrified, stiff of coming into space. Back to OMSK, I wanted to say one thing.
Yeah.
Because of this kind of humility that they have and this kind of unpreciousness about the kind of curatorial practice, it does mean that actually the kind of stuff you do see there is unexpected, and it isn't kind of predictably like, oh yeah, it hits all kind of live art targets. And I think that's what's really fantastic and magnificent about OMSK, is that it is so uneven what goes on there. And I'd rather come to that than 10 nights at the ICA any day.
Okay, what about if OMSK was on at the ICA?
If OMSK was on the ICA, I would be outside having a fag.
Okay. Where are we going to go from here? There's a lot of statements and stuff like that. Got wasted on these wanker artists.
There should be no art funding. There should be no art funding. I don't see why. I've never heard a convincing argument about why you should fund art.
How can OMSK raise money out apart from with funding?
But yeah, I mean, OMSK has raised money quite successfully in so many different ways. It doesn't.
Box office. You charge money on the door, you get a big audience, they pay, and then that's it.
They'll buy some drinks as well, don't they?
You only attract those audiences once you put on a good show, and those good shows are the ones that we have historically.
That's
are
showbiz, honey.
They're funded. They're funded events.
I think people should be allowed to see art without having to pay for it, really.
But they will do that. They can do that
because
without.
I think art's good for people.
Yeah, but they can do that without.
Why is it good for them? I don't understand. Why is art good for people?
You have to fund art. That's good for them then. If you want,
Who decides what's good for them, and who decides what is good?
That's what the process of OMSK is about. It's about putting it out there and letting people decide what is good and what they like.
Yeah, and it's been very successful without any funding whatsoever. And I think any funding would just.
You don't need funding.
You don't need funding. I mean, people make art. There'd be like 100,000 painters in this country, even without. art funding.
Because most of the really expensive and funded art, it's not art the kind of things that I like, but I still think that there needs to be a plethora of options, as many options as there possibly can be.
Let people decide.
If you want to do that, if you really want a kind of egalitarian democratic system, what you do is you fund distribution and exhibition, and you stop funding production, and then anybody can get their work distributed, anyone can get their work exhibited, and then everyone else can decide.
People struggle without funding, and people get put off. They don't want to do it.
I think production's a really important part of funding, actually, because like sometimes you can't produce things without having money attached to it, and sometimes there's no way. But
I disagree. I think we're coming around. I think that people can produce stuff without funding. The reason people apply for funding is because you get distribution if you get funding. And that is the thing that needs to be inquired into. To be perfectly honest, the only reason a lot of filmmakers that I know, and the reason I would apply for funding, is that automatically, if the Arts Council fund your work, they feel some obligation to distribute it.
Production is the no.
I'm gonna wait one at a time.
Yeah, production is the easy part of anything. I've been producing a journal now for 10 years, and we've actually had to distribute it ourselves. The only way to get it out there at the moment is to do it yourself. Distribution is the key thing to any kind of production at all. Production's a piece of piss.
Okay, so let's not even waste time talking about production. Yeah.
say I don't think it's just as cut and dry as that. Like to say production needs funding and distribution doesn't need funding is quite black and white. Like, you know, there are good reasons for both, I think, as well.
Depends what the level of your project is, doesn't it? I mean, some projects can cost 15 quid and some, unfortunately, cost over £1 million. And I think that artists have the right to work with big budgets if their vision is at that kind of level, and audiences have the right to see works that cost a lot of money.
I mean, what? An artist has a right to £1 million if their vision,
if they got the right
if their vision is at a certain level, and who will decide that their vision has reached this
I've got
level?
-9 and -10,
and where will
so
that
I've
money
got no
come
chance.
from? That's
I'd argue in this society, where we are at the moment, actually, distribution we're talking about short art film. Distribution is actually really easy. I mean, compared to how it was, compared to because there are so many forums to show that kind of work now. I mean,
Isn't that one of the questions on here? Is art, do we like free, cheap, and downloadable, or make it rare, collectible? You know, isn't that there's so many chances for people to get.
That far.
I know, but there's so many. There's so many chances for people to get it out there now, and distribution. Distribution of music.
To some extent, YouTube and things like that have made exploding cinema redundant because anyone has access to that space. But the point is, if you want to show something and you want it to have some kind of quality and you want to have some kind of interaction with an audience, and an audience, not a global audience, but a local audience who can turn around and tell you your film is shit, then
they
it
don't
has
often
to be
do that though, even when it is shit.
It has to be distributed properly, and distribution isn't just about sending it to places. It's also about finding venues. When I started doing a journal, we were told there is no way you should even bother taking it outside of London because there's nowhere that will actually sell it. And we thought they were talking shit, but it was absolutely true. There was nothing outside of London.
I'd absolutely disagree, because there are places where you can distribute things and if you're talking about if you could take it. Well, no, I can't disagree with your experience. No, I'm not disagreeing with that. But to say, there aren't any places to put things in is rubbish. I mean, I was doing, like, for example, I was doing an independent publication 12 years ago, and I found places to sell it outside London. So, and also, well, not very many, but there are places. But there are to say there aren't places. There are loads of places.
In London, I could find as many places I wanted to put it. Outside of London, there was about 4.